And welcome back, Rugby Rant fans, episode 169, the Doug Glatt special, Doug the Thug. If you're a hockey fan,
It's an obtuse
listen.
reference, man. That went over my head, and I like to
Oh, come
consider
on, listen.
myself a hockey connoisseur on occasion.
That's a great movie, a great hockey movie. Anyway, guys, we're here. It's another episode of the Rugby Rant 169. I'm the big guy, Scott Farrar. That is Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt.
Yo,
Unfortunately, our boy James Daly couldn't be here tonight, and also Ty couldn't be here tonight. But you got us. OG crew still rocking.
I heard Dealey had a migraine from chucking through all the numbers from the weekend, so he needed
to do his hair or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Wash his hair.
That's all right.
Marsha Brady. 4,999, 5,000. But no, shout out to MLR stats. But yeah, it's a great week for rugby. We had another great set of rugby matches over the weekend, and we have a great slate coming up. Before we get to that, doing all that, we're gonna hit our round the pitch. Hammer, why don't you kick us off with the first round the pitch topic?
Oh, stinking-lutely. So interestingly, sometimes I don't think we pay enough homage to our friends north of the border up there in Canada, eh? So we got to appease Doug Wilkie. We got to appease the Gazas. We got to appease those folks at Le Rouge. And so I want to just talk briefly about the East Coast Rugby Championship. It does involve a little bit of a crossover. It is an academy championship. A couple of things I like about this. Let me first explain East Coast, West Coast division, the Free Jacks Academy, Rugby Quebec, and the Arrows Seniors. What do I like about this? Well, there's two of them packed into the West Coast. First, you got the Free Jacks involved, so it involves that, again, cross-border competition. Second, the Arrows in some form are alive and well. And so I love the fact that there's a piece of Bill Webb still alive and kicking, and that's good news. And then on the east, you got the Rugby New Brunswick, you got Nova Scotia Celtics, and the Atlantic Rock, out of St. John's, Newfoundland. They compete in a spring 2024 championship. So that's very interesting and good news for Canadian rugby. And of course, it's good to see a little bit of a slice of America involved. And so that's what I like.
Love to hear it. And it's pronounced Newfoundland. My buddies are Newfies in the Canadian military, playing hockey. It's Newfoundland. So you know. Shout out to Terry Ryan Jr. But listen, it is good to see the academy still rocking up there. Again, Bill Webb's legacy lives on strong, not only on the pitch while the guys are playing, but in everybody's hearts. We truly miss him. He was one of the guys pushing MLR and professional rugby and creating a solid pathway to the Rugby Canada side. So, definitely miss him, but glad to see it's happening for the youth side. So I'm going to grab the next one. So for those of you who may have missed it, we had an international match. The Eagles ended up playing South Africa over in the UK. The women played South Africa with a big win, finishing up the match 38-17. You also had a hat trick hero in Georgie Paris-Redding, the flanker coming in. I mean, she scored off the bat first minute in. They had a knock on the opening kick, and she took that knock on all the way down the sideline to score. And to be honest, South Africa didn't score any tries till the second half, and by then it was too late. With 3 tries coming in the first half and 3 tries coming in the second half for the Eagles. And Gabby Carterna, she was 4 out of 6 in her conversions. We were scoring from everywhere. It was nice to see. Kate Zachary captaining that team, doing a little bit of a jersey swap at the end. Our girl Tess Fury played all 80 minutes at 15. You had Catherine Trader as another scorer. She was starting at hooker. Lottie Clapp capped it off at the end in the 58th minute to score the final try for US. And again, the ladies won 38-17 against the Box. And speaking of internationals, I know you guys have seen it, but the big guy, definitely going to DC for the Scotland match, right? And the Hammer's looking to go to the Chicago match in against Romania the week before. We're hoping our boy Rob Ramescu is going to be there.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to
I
tell
finally
Rob.
get to meet the
You get to
man,
me,
the
Rob,
myth,
but
the
I'm going to
legend,
tell
Robert
Rob
Iremescu.
I want a kit. I got to tell everybody, my buddy Robbie, I want a kit to give to you to send to me from that match. So I'm going to hound him for that in his
Okay.
dreams. But it's good to see. So I'm going to be there in DC as we take on Scotland, and Hammer's going to be there in the week before in Chicago as they take on Romania. So get your tickets now. Come let us know
Yeah.
where you're sitting, hanging out. We're going to be doing social media. We're going to be doing interviews. If you know us, come interview with us. It's going to be a fun time. Hammer, what's your
100%.
second topic, brother?
Well, you know me, I like to talk about grassroots rugby, and part of that is the college landscape. And we got bad news about a month or so ago, and that Notre Dame College, not Notre Dame. Thank you, Justin Henneke. I threw a shout out to him last week on the sideline, but Notre Dame College, we found out was going to be closing its rugby doors, and they've had two very quality programs in both men's and women's. The men won two major titles. The women had qualified for the finals as well in recent years. Unfortunately, due to financial constraints and concerns, they had to shutter their doors. But the good news is, if there is some good news or a silver lining to take out of this, the university worked very hard with some other universities to look to see where these young men and women could transfer to so they could continue to get their education as well as play high level rugby. And Walsh University opted to adopt the Notre Dame college programs. They share some similarities in terms of college majors. And so this is in North Canton, Ohio. They're going to honor the transfers, as I said, and it's really good news because ultimately we just want to see rugby continue. And thank you to Walsh University for their willingness to step up and support college rugby. We appreciate it, Walsh University. Thank you so much. And we will be rooting for each and every one of the players and the university itself at both the men's and women's levels.
Well, it's good to hear that the men and women will be getting to play somewhere else and continue their career, and hopefully have as little, um, you know, stalling of their collegiate career as possible, whether it's, because they're transferring all their credits. And, as we know, from experience, if you want to transfer, sometimes credits don't go through and this, that, and the other thing. So it's glad to see that they're working together to get these kids, on track and back into a program where they can continue their major and get their degree, which is the most important part, and play rugby at the same time. So it's good to hear that. So I'm going with my second topic, and this might be a surprise to everybody, including the Hammer, but so, as you know, MLR has the 20-minute red card law, right? And they've trialed it. They're putting it out. World Rugby's putting it out as the law. So World Rugby, due to some, I guess, lashback at that law, and people, think it's unfair, they're coming out with a new law, right? World Rugby. So I'm just going to read this from their Instagram post. During a match, each team will be allowed one power play. The period will be lasting 10 minutes in that power play, during which they can bring on an additional player, increasing team size temporarily from 15 to 16 players. This period can be activated by the team captain at any time period during the match and can only be used once per team per match, not per half, per match. So you're going to get a power play for a 10-minute period in a match. And it's really nice. I think it's going to change the way some of these teams are driven offensively. It's obviously, meant to bring more points to rugby, make it more exciting in rugby union. I mean, we just had the advent of the NRL over in Vegas, and that was a big successful event. About 45 to 50,000 people attended that event. They're still talking about it. And I think this is rugby union's way of, um, you know, changing the rule to get some more offensive output. And Rob, do you know who the new it's the new head of officiating is at World Rugby?
I don't know.
And her name is April. April Fools.
Fools.
I got you, everybody.
Well,
It's a little
yeah,
joke.
you did, you
Shout
did.
out to
Well,
World
and
Rugby.
especially, it
They
is
put
April
out a
Fools on
couple.
the day of recording here.
Yeah. It's Monday. It's April Fools. I know you guys won't be seeing this till Thursday or Friday or Saturday, depending on when you're watching or listening, but I had to throw in an April Fool's joke. But seriously, um, you know, I think it's one of those things where as the new law is thought out, you're going to see some wacky ideas, and that doesn't mean we're going to implement them all. But hey, keep thinking outside the box to help us with the game, Hammer. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know there's been a lot of banter and discussion about the officials thus far through week 5. And I guess I would say, when are people going to stop complaining about officiating all the time? Right? And I don't mean to demean anybody. I know we are always looking for officiating to improve, but
Mhm.
we've also got to keep in mind that they are working on it every single day, every single week. It's been at the forefront. And I spoke with Derek Summers actually on Saturday's match. And, I just asked him before the match, I said, "Hey, are you guys going to be looking at anything?" And he said, "Yeah, we don't want to see any after the play now
Mhm.
activities," right? And it's so
Mhm.
something that they're looking at. And if we looked at last weekend's slate of matches, this was an area of emphasis.
Mhm.
And I'll probably mention when we get to our rant some of the ways in which this materialized. But remember, guys, TMO, clear and obvious foul play. I think they've been fairly consistent on when the TMO inserts himself into play. It's when it's clear and obvious foul play. Otherwise, leave it up to the match official.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. Again, I'm always the type of person. If you didn't win by 50 points, don't complain about anything. To be quite honest, that's not to say I do believe that officials should be held responsible if there's really in insidious and these attempt to injure type of plays, and usually that type of stuff is what happens on the back end of things where punches are thrown. So I'm glad they're emphasizing to stop that. But you also have to remember, this isn't hockey where there's two guys, two
Right.
officials, can call plays, and you have officials that are just linesmen, and you know the TMO is the TMO, but again, they're not as proactive as we would like them to be. I think sometimes because it does slow down the game. It seems as though we want them to be proactive. We then complain that they're too proactive and it slows down the game. So
Right.
there is
And as a
there is a
case in point with
balance.
that kick, right?
Mhm.
On Saturdays, was it or Friday night's match? I
Friday
guess
night,
it
yeah.
was. Yeah, the kick. A lot of people were like, "Why didn't he get more than that?" There was an attempt to kick him in the head, and the question is, when it comes down to it, was there contact with the head or neck?
Yeah.
No. And
As we've said
therefore,
time and time again, they've started to not only tell you the law, the
yeah,
intent doesn't matter. They've drilled it into the official's head. Intent doesn't matter.
right,
It's what's the result, right? What was the
right.
result? As we saw with Jameson fighting on Schultz, right? What's the result? Did he hit
Yep,
him in the air? Yes. That's the red card. That's he goes off the
correct.
pitch.
Did
And
Billy
you
land
want
on
to
his
talk
head
about
and neck?
yeah, did Billy Meeks go up to create a penalty? Yes, he did. He knew his best chance of getting the ball was going up against a forward, and most likely the forward was going to touch him that close. Let's be honest. He knew what he was doing. He's that's part of the game. Now we could talk about later on, in later things, the suspension and what we agree and disagree on, but that's plain as day. He went up. Jameson Fanon Schultz touched him. That's the card, right?
Yep.
So you can't complain about that. But before we get right into it, what Rob was referencing before our topic is we're going to talk and we're going to take a look at the Miami Sharks versus the San Diego Legion match that happened over the weekend on Sunday, excuse me, and kind of talk about it was a close match and are we seeing more parity in the league now in some of these teams and what's going on with that. So before we do that, we're going to catch a word from one of our sponsors.
When we pick up the ball, we also pick up a legacy. A legacy that stretches beyond your current team. A legacy built on the backs of those who came before you with hard work. And for those who will come after you, we promise it won't be easy. But we'll be there, supporting you on and off the field.
And like we talked about before the break, we're going to kind of be breaking down that Miami San Diego match over the weekend, and let me just give you the statistics. San Diego come roaring back, winning 22-21 down in Fort Lauderdale against the Miami Sharks. It was a great match. Kickoff I believe was 6:30 Eastern on Easter Sunday, and for me, Hammer, I got to be quite honest, it was tough to watch because by like 2 o'clock I had
Hmm.
full belly. I was going downhill. I had smoked this rack of ribs. I did a full pork, a full bone and ham. My brother's girlfriend only eats chicken or turkey, so my mother made a chicken parm with chicken cutlets. You know, we had
Ooh,
yeah, we had
that's a solid entry right there,
Italian
chicken
meat, yeah,
parm.
Italian meat and cheeses. We had all the Italian favorites, the pizza rustico, the mugliats, the taralls, plus dessert. My dad made a cheesecake and yada yada yada. So by the time 6:30
I
kickoff
just have
came
a
around,
question. Did your little guy chef, did he get to, embrace making a little of the gravy?
yeah.
Come on now.
Listen, he's gonna be 9 months soon, so he's a little far from getting in the kitchen, but I mean he had his prune and pear puree that day. But no, but seriously, it was a good match. It was fun. It was all Miami first half, San Diego second half. Like we said, down in Fort Lauderdale. You talk about some of the disciplinary issues. We had the yellow card for Hugh Roach later in the first half. You had some. I think Miami took 7 penalty kicks. Echeverria only converted 3. Excuse me, my throat's starting to go. But I mean, what do you think about this match, Hammer? We talk about parity. Give us your
Yeah.
opinion here.
It's kind of funny as I'm watching the match, especially in the second half, I began to think I was having a bit of deja vu at the day. And I actually taped it. I didn't watch it on Sunday. I watched it today on Monday, the day of the recording. And I thought I was dreaming and being taken back in time to Saturday when I was on the sideline for the Hounds match against Seattle, which was also a tale of two halves, right? And I saw some of the same things happening during the course of the match. An excellently played match by the home team through the first half, only to see that match and their lead start to slip away slowly but surely, and in some part to errors. And they were fixable errors. And so for the Hounds, it was handling errors and opportunities in scoring position. In the case of Miami, yeah, it was penalties, it was some handling errors, and it was some poor kicking. Especially Echeverry had an opportunity to kick to slot one that was probably about 30 out, dead center. You would have thought if there was a kick that could have been made, that would have done it. That was it. It would have been 24 at that point, I think, to 5, and it certainly would have been a tough mountain to climb for Danny Lee and his boys. And you could see at the end of the match, Danny Lee's response to winning the match, just this, sigh of relief, like, wow, we got that one out. But there was a lot of things in this match to discuss for sure.
Absolutely, Hammer. You talk about the kicking. I got to be honest, and I this is one of those things I always feel like we talk about in football too. Like you have to own your home pitch when you're kicking.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's all the way left, all the way right, all the way back. Your kicker in your home pitch has to be nailing all those kicks, right? And any one of those kicks is a kick that wins them the match later on, you know. And again, as we talked about kind of in the first time, I'm usually not one to complain about a single performance, but I do feel like, missing 4 of those kicks it puts you in a tough spot because you chose to do the penalty,
Yeah.
right? And real quick, just those kicks coming at the first 3 he converted were all early in the first half. And my point being, it's great to get those points on the board against San Diego, but are those 3-point attempts always going to hold you over against a San Diego Legion team who's looking to win the league this year?
Right. And to that point, Scott, here's my question for you. I think it was 32 minutes into that first half with a very, very good lead. I think it was 21-5 at that juncture
Mhm.
for Miami.
Yes.
They get a penalty, and I think it was the one I was speaking of earlier, where it's right about 30, 35 meters out. It totally kickable, dead straight. But I thought to myself at that time, do you put the screws to them? Do you go to the corner? It's your home pitch. We know that the driving maul is an effective way to score points. Do you kick to the corner and really put the pressure on? And if you get it held up, you get the ball back. You should be able to draw the penalty potentially. And, clearly with some of the running rugby they were doing in the first half, if they just methodically hold on to the ball and look for opportunities, there's an opportunity to put some more points on the board than
And
three.
and Rob, what happened 2 minutes before that? Hugh Roach was yellow carded for stomping on the
Yeah.
opponent's ankle. So Legion were down a man. Why wouldn't you try and kick it to the corner?
Right.
Their starting hooker is now out.
Yep.
So, one of their starting forwards is out. Now, don't get me wrong. You put in your reserve hooker, and as substitutions go, you should be just as excited, when the next guy comes in, it's next man up, whatever. But my point is there has to be something psychologically going on to say, man, we got to shove it down their throat and put their foot on the gas. And this is indicative of a style of South American play that we see quite often with the kicking and the kicking and the kicking. And you're in your home stadium on your home turf, up a man. That man who's out is a forward. So even if your rolling maul stalls, you still have an extra man out there in your line. Make something happen within the 10 meters in the green zone. Like I think I've talked about this on the show quite often, where for some reason nobody can make those adjustments on the pitch. Like as a professional player, it shouldn't be in your mind to kick the damn points. Somebody should have went up to him and say, "Don't make that decision. Kick to the fucking corner." Like I don't get that. It doesn't make sense to me, especially with a team like San Diego, who's looking to beat you up front, who's looking to beat you with a back line, who's looking to counter kick you to hell. And hopefully you make a mistake because they're looking for 5 points at all times. I mean, I don't think they even had an opportunity to really take a penalty kick. They went they had two opportunities, and but they, again, late in the match to try and take, you're taking your winning points there at that point. You know what I mean? But again, that's when it's close. But my point is, first half, stay on the gas, all gas, no brakes. I don't understand, Rob.
Yeah, I think it's especially critical to think about that decision within the context of where you are in the season. Remember, we're looking to get bonus points for tries, and with Miami behind already 5 weeks in, and just in terms of the points table, I mean, looking at the points table, you've got and I'm just clicking back over to it. You've got Miami, who's sitting with 7 points, and you got Chicago, and this is at the conclusion of the weekend, but they're nipping at the heels of Chicago, right? So why not try to get that extra bonus point in that juncture to get you more in the hunt? It's not it's a different story if you're talking about playoffs, right? Where it doesn't matter to get the bonus point, to get those extra tries, to keep it within 7. That doesn't matter in the playoffs, just about the win, right? But this is a little different scenario against a little different team. And I just want to ask you to take a minute and talk to folks and give your opinion. Is there parity? Is this game represent the parity that exists? Because by my numbers, you have a 4-1 team going into this game and a 1-4 team going into this game, who are separated by 12 points prior to this match. And yet Miami takes them to the wire.
I think it's two things. One, I think crossing the coast is hard. I don't think the teams have necessarily mastered that yet. Especially on a Sunday, you're traveling on Saturday, probably one of the bigger travel days of the year as people are trying to get home from Easter. I'm sure as much as you want to say it professionally, you can take care of it. This isn't the Green Bay Packers taking up a whole flight, you know what I mean? And they're all on their own,
or a charter for that matter.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they haven't perfected that yet. I don't think that you're ever going to perfect it unless you have your own charter flights or you can book a full jetliner. Unfortunately. And I do think it's that time of the season where, what was it, week 5? This is week 5? That was week 5 last week?
It was week 5.
You're going to start to see guys get rest. You're going to start to see, some difference in the lineups, especially when you're going against a team in a different conference, because the loss isn't going to hurt as much, right?
Right. Head to head against somebody in your conference.
It's not head to head. Exactly. So that point differential is really doubled as far as table points concerned, right? Yep. But going back to your point about why try and kick for post there, if you look at the Miami Sharks lineup, our buddy Jonas Petrakopoulos started at prop, Kirby Myhill at hooker, and my buddy Alec McDonald starting at the other prop, and they all got taken out. Jonas and Kirby got taken out in the 44th minute, and Alex stayed in until the 55th minute. And replacing Alec was Tavita Sole, who was just traded from New England, so he's relatively new. So if you have guys like Jonas and Alec there who've been there the entire season so far, and yes, they're young props, and it's hard to match up with what San Diego has prop wise. That doesn't mean, again, they had the momentum at that point. I don't understand what you're doing. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me. Give those guys some confidence. And you took them out. You took them out 4 minutes into the second half. That just seems weird to me. Maybe guys are getting tired again. You're getting beat up by some big dudes on the Legion, but the Legion, let's see. Hugh Roach went to the 70th minute, but again, he also had a 10-minute break. And Darcy Breen, full 80 minutes for the Legion. And Piffoletti got taken out in the 51st minute. But my point is, if you're going against a prop who's sitting there for 80 minutes and you're putting in your backup at 44, so maybe, hindsight being 2020, it's a good idea, right? You're putting in a guy has 40 minutes or, 36 minutes he didn't play, right? But, again, it just, I don't know. It seems weird to me that they made those choices that early as well. It's like something's up. Like they're not trusting them to get the job done. And that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. You have to instill confidence. And instilling confidence, in my opinion, unless they're hurt, and I don't think both, your prop and your hooker were hurt at the same time to take them out,
Yeah, and it's interesting. You go back to personnel issues that you were just speaking to, and I think Miami was missing 4 of their starters from the previous week. And then they mentioned on the broadcast that San Diego was missing 6 of their starters from their previous week. And, going to the point of parity, is there parity, or did just Miami catch San Diego with, crossing the coast? With San Diego having 6 guys out, just the difficulty of travel that goes along with crossing the coast, some of those challenges. They didn't have their starting number 9, who's had really, really McClutchy's had some really good season. I think McClutchy started actually at 10, so if I'm not mistaken. So
yes,
did those things factor into it? Yeah, I still think that the parity is there. That we have a lot of parity in the league, and there are these opportunities for teams that are lower in the conference standings to catch up and catch some of these teams that are at the top. If you look at the other side, we had a cross-conference battle between the Hounds and Seattle, and the Hounds were winning that match throughout most of the match up until the last, I think this is the last 5 minutes.
Yep.
And which Seattle caught him, and then put a last try out of desperation by the Hounds to try to get that, to get themselves back on top, with Seattle being 4-1, 19 points in the West, and Chicago being tied for 4th, I believe it actually, tied for 4th, and being 1-3-1 with 8 points. That was a really tight match given all that happened.
You have to look at the Friday match, Dallas Jackals and Houston Sabercats.
Yeah.
Sabercats, having to kick a penalty in the 79th minute. So I think what's happening here is you're seeing the teams. There's even Anthem's scoring a lot of points. They're starting to gel.
They are.
Offensively, defensively, they have a lot to work on. And in my opinion, they haven't found their guy to cop it out yet. And that's just one of those things that's going to take time. Miami, I think, was at a particular advantage because obviously, being announced earlier than Anthem. Signing their players a little earlier. It's still going to take time to gel because it's a new team, new space, new players coming together. And don't get me wrong, there's guys who've played together, a little bit there. But it's always a learning curve with those teams. But again, they were more ahead of the game, And same thing with LA. Yeah. LA's starting to gel, right? And they have quite a few guys who've played together. So I think, but LA also didn't have much of a preseason quite like Anthem. but I do think LA will gel better both offensively and defensively quicker than Anthem would. So is there parity? Yes. But I think if the league can stay stable, there's not much of a shakeup in a particular organization going into next year. I think you're going to see these tighter games happen by week 2 and week 3 versus week 5, week 4, week 5, week 6 against all these teams.
Yeah. Well, and I got to ask you this while we're talking about Miami, what is their identity? Because it seems to be that people are throwing around this idea that Miami is this very fast, exciting, creative, exciting brand of rugby, which everybody wants to see. And don't get me wrong, there are points in the match, and we saw it on Sunday, in which you saw sparks of that where you went, oh, yes, that's what I like to see. One in particular, in Karate, their number 9, there was a penalty, took a quick tap, and there was a really nice break and run. It eventually came to a halt, but those are the kind of exciting things you like to see, right? But what's odd is you look at the statistics, and let me just throw something at you if I can quickly find it.
Sure.
So you think that the Miami Sharks would have a lot of passes, right? Because they're this very creative team that is very exciting, et cetera, et cetera. End of the day, Miami's total pass distance. I'm just going to go pass distance. This is on ball tracking, 469 meters to San Diego's 1,022.
Okay, I'm gonna say a few words here.
And let me throw one thing at you,
okay.
and I'm looking for you to respond. In contrast, kicking, 1,054 by Miami meters kicked to 858 meters kicked by San Diego. Okay. So you'd think they would bring that exciting, very fast and loose play, but it's actually not. They're a very kick-oriented team.
And you want to talk about less passing meters. I'll give you a couple words here. Nick Boyer, Ryan James, Tion Lutz, Mikey Tail, Marcel Brocky. Guys who are good on the defensive side of the ball. So, when we talk about effective tackling, right, we talk about a technique that can get you the first guy bringing down the ball carrier, the second guy coming in and trying to cover on a counter ruck. Those guys I mentioned are very high successful percentages of tackling one-on-one and bringing the guy down. So what is Miami looking to do? They're looking to try and pass the ball, but also one of the issues, and we've seen this happen in years prior with teams, is that extra offload that's killing you.
Yeah.
So again, I think Miami hasn't found their balance. Right. Unfortunately, their default position for some of their internationals is kick the ball, is that South American style of kick the ball. And we know that that's not necessarily effective in this league. And that's not effective for a lot of the players in this league. So again, I think it goes back to my first comments about adjusting. They have to have a sit down with those guys and say, it can't just be about the counter kick, especially I didn't feel Miami's countering their kicks well. Toronto Arrows used to be very good at it, where they would kick the ball and they would be so far up, towards the next gain line that, it was almost like 3 or 4 guys were in on that kick and making the guy receiving it nervous, right? And then the mistake would happen and hopefully you go down and score. I didn't see that much urgency. To me, it felt like they were waiting for the counter kick to come back. And again, that's, South America style. Okay, we're going to kick the ball back. English style, we're going to kick the ball back. And that's not really what San Diego does. I mean, they do it strategically. San Diego does do that, gives their guys a break a little bit, but not necessarily for the offensive power I think they're looking for.
Right. And I think you're right. I think that at times when Echeverry, for example, and their 9 in Karte chose to take off and run with the ball, I don't
way more successful.
Well, I don't know that sometimes they always had the support of the rest of the team with them, and they try to do
the individual run. The individual run was successful, and then when they realized they didn't have support, that's when they made the mistake of doing the extra move.
Yes.
Exactly. We're on the same
Agreed.
page with that. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and does that come, as you say, going into season 2 for the Miami Sharks when they've had more time to gel, when they perhaps had a fall season for some of those players to get an opportunity to play more consistent rugby with one another? Do they get more continuity? Do they understand where to be because they know they're going to get a quick tap and go, because they know that they're going to, make a break and what shoulder to be off of? I think you saw that continuity with some of the tries put forward by San Diego. They had a sublime try that went through about 5 different sets of hands that edged them right into that match. And then I think the kick is
The one that wins it for him, yeah.
it was the one that won it for him. Yeah.
Mhm. I think also we talk about culture. You can't build culture instantly. And again,
No.
having no inside knowledge of what was going on in Miami's mind, maybe they were too, I wouldn't say scared, but maybe they were a little apprehensive of that moment to say, "Oh God, we're up big on a really good team who came into our house, who's been a powerhouse, right?" And maybe they just kind of, unfortunately let it go afterwards. What is it? Was 38 special? Hold on loosely, but don't let go, right?
Yeah.
If you squeeze too
Yeah.
tightly, you're going to lose control.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that could be a mindset for guys, and that's not to say not the culture's not there or the culture's bad, but it takes a while to build that mindset of just like make the
Yeah.
play and don't worry about the mistakes. I don't
Yeah.
know if maybe they're not gelling at that point yet to do that.
It's funny you mention that because, and again, I at the top of our discussion, I talked about the similarities that I felt
Mhm.
to the match between the Hounds and Seattle. And I said that very same thing when I was speaking to some of the players after the game. I talked to JP Smith. I had a good conversation with Clarkey, the coach of Alan Clark, the coach of Seattle. I talked with some of the players from the and coach from the Hounds. Is that the difference? I think in that game was that Seattle, and I think we see this with San Diego very similarly. Seattle has been in that moment before. They've been from behind. They've had to play from behind. They've been in tight matches. I mean, we need to go back to what that is. It the first ever MLR final against Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, there's been a lot of changeover, but there are a core of players. And I'm talking about, man of the match, JP Smith. I'm talking about Reichert Hadding, that form the foundation of that team, and they have long established culture. They don't need to talk about it. As Sam Harris said, if you have it, you don't talk about it. and they have that culture. They have that expectation. They believe in Clarkey. They believe in the system. They believe in one another. They play for one another. And it's not to say that the Hounds or Miami don't. It just takes time. It was 60% turnover for the Hounds. It's just going to take time for those boys to get that mix and get in those positions to feel like we can, even when we're down, we can win. When we're in tight matches, we're going to pull it out.
And let's pull it back to Friday night. Look at Dallas Jackals. Dallas Jackals have had so much turnover in the past 3 years in their roster. Again, I don't think a culture was necessarily built, right? When you look at
Right.
the Sabercats, while the Sabercats have had turnover, you still have guys there like Tiana Rasmus, Dom Aquina, Christian Dyer, Carlo Denison, who've been there for a while. And then you have guys who come in like Lerone White, Jeremy Misagalu, Justin Basson, Johan Momsen, Marlo Rendling-Heiss, who came from other teams eventually, right? But they've all been on teams that had built cultures before, whether it was Atlanta or New York or you know ill-fated in Austin or Utah or wherever they come from. So because they've been in the league a little while and kind of know that Houston has a culture, I think some of those guys they could buy in because they've seen it in other places,
Right.
right?
Well, and let's not forget, obviously, with the coaching staff, they're in the 3rd season, if not
Yeah.
mistaken, under the direction of Heineke Meyer and
Mhm.
and Pote Human. Right. They're in their 3rd season. So the expectations are clearly established.
Mhm.
There's a core of players that have lived under those expectations and understand what they are, and then they practice those and you know, they make it part of what they do, what they say, and how they work and operate.
Yeah.
So they've had an opportunity to establish this, and it's just going to take time for some of these newer teams to be able to find that, find their footing in that regard.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we've kind of flushed out this topic between the last
Yeah.
2 weeks. And again, I don't think any of these teams are on the wrong track. Again, I don't think any of these teams have bad culture. I just think the culture hasn't flourished as greatly in some of the teams yet as it has in other teams. I think we're seeing that, and I think Dallas is a good example of it's right on they had that upturn. They're just so close, but they're just that far away, the game of inches. But it's way better than what we've seen in the past from them. And I think that's if we talk about parity in the league, I
Yeah.
think the standard really you would want to look at is Dallas and their climb.
Yeah.
Again, their record might not be showing the success, but we're watching the matches. The games they're not being pushed back into the friggin'
No.
goalposts like they were against Rooney, right? In the scrum.
Right.
They're not
Right.
having these, really boneheaded plays all the time. Don't get me wrong. You're gonna have the bonehead pass out of bounds because again, you're doing that extra pass. You're gonna have that bonehead play every once in a while, but it was kind of like a calamity of errors sometimes with Dallas. You're seeing way better rugby. You're seeing the culture start to be built there. And I think that is really our marker for parity.
Yeah. Agreed. For the Rick Collins' heart.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think things are going in the right direction down in Dallas. It's good to see.
Yep. So we're going to be at that point, and we're going to talk about our lock of the week.
The Rugby Rant's lock of the week.
So, Rob, what's your lock of the week for this week here?
Well, let's go through the games. We got Anthem at Utah. We got Dallas at Seattle. That's on both those Friday night. Hounds down in NOLA. I'll be at that match. If you're down there, come say hello. I'll be down there as of the release of this video on Friday night. Miami at New England and LA at DC, all happening on Saturday. And my lock of the week is New England over Miami. We know that Fort Quincy is a very, very difficult place to play. They have a great crowd. They get behind their boys, and New England is rolling right now. Miami's still finding their footing, trying to find their identity. It's going to be difficult to play up there. Watch. Let's see what it looks like. A difficult adjustment going from South Beach up to Boston, Mass. So I'm giving New England the nudge by 10.
Interesting. I like that. But I also know sometimes New England comes off a bye week and it's not necessarily their best performance. And that's not to say that won't change this season. I'm just saying historically, a lot of teams come off a bye week and have an issue. So let's talk about my lock of the week. My lock of the week is going to be Seattle over Dallas. This is what I think is going to happen. I think Dallas, even though they played great the other day, they had a heartbreaker of a loss. They're going to want to be, I think they've used some of their juice. And I think they're just going to have a tough time going over to Starfire, again, crossing a couple time zones, going north. Who knows what the weather is going to be like at this point? I don't want to, say anything because, Pacific Northwest, it could rain at any point. And I think Seattle's going to want to say, hey, we squeaked out one last week against the Hounds. We're at home. Again, all throttle, no gas. I'm going to go Seattle by 12. I'm going to say, a converted try and an unconverted try. But I think Seattle's going to handle Dallas. Seattle minus 12 up and home.
I like that. I like that pick. That's a good one. So some great slate of games. Again, we have a full slate now. We're running 5 of 6 right now. So, a little better than last week. One more than last week, but it'll be a good slate of games this weekend. As I said, I'll be down in New Orleans for that one. And yes, indeedy, Nicky Feeks, not an April Fool's joke. Just got confirmation from my man Nick Feeks, the Mongoose. He is already down in NOLA. So I will be seeing him. We'll see if he gets rostered on the 23 for the weekend. But I want to throw a shout out. First of all, thank you very much to Rugby Now and Shop MLR for sponsoring our Super Brew contest this season. Once again, huge supporters. Can't say enough about what they do. And let me tell you, if you haven't got your Super Brew merch, Shop MLR merch, get it now. They got some great deals on the Paladin stuff, but they've got some the Kappa stuff rolling out right now. The Anthem hopefully should be coming out mid-season, but the LA stuff is already out. It looks awesome. They have a fine selection on shopmlr.com. We have some pretty great kit. I showed last week the Houndstooth. I'll put on next week the white Houndstooth. I got that. But nevertheless, I want to throw a shout to Super Brew winner, week 5, Stephen Lowen. We talked about Houston. He is a big Houston fan, and he won himself $25 gift card to Shop MLR. And I know they got some great Cats kit. They've got some really cool, not just jerseys, but the training shirts. So I know he's going to get himself some sweet merch.
Always good to win you some swag. Good job, Steven. Appreciate you signing up. I know you've been with us for a couple years now. So appreciate you. But Rob, I think this one is done and dusted. Get your Super Brew picks in if you haven't done it. Join Super Brew now because you can still win weekly. And you'd be surprised people at the end of the season forget to put in their picks and you can win overall. We do have top 3 winners of the overall get money every week. Top winner gets money. Get that get that Rugby Now money. Check out rugbynow.com for all your team needs. We're going to be coming to a spring season. Spring 7 summer tournaments. Get all your equipment there. They had a special on cleat studs, Adidas cleat studs, as Rob put out on our social media the other day. And check out shopmlr.com to get your swag, baby. I'm Scott, the big guy Ferrara. That's Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt. 169 done and dusted. We'll see you guys at 170. Peace.